Hi, my name is Casey Walker. I'm an attorney with VA Disability Group. I'm the founder of VA Disability Group. And today I would like to talk to you about the thigh and hip DBQ reports, which is a compensation and pension report for determining the degree of disability or impairment of your thigh and hip. As a former adjudicator, I have intimate knowledge in this subject matter, and I hope you find this helpful. Before we get into the actual examination report, let's talk about what you need to do before you make it to the day of the examination. This is pretty important. You need to be treated for your condition. If you have arthritis of the thigh or you have some other type of thigh condition, a strain or a sprain, get it documented. Go to the examiner. You can't show up on the day of the examination without ever documenting a single thing. That's not fair to the examiner. They don't know you. Give them something to work with. Be treated for your thigh condition or your hip condition. Additionally, give them a sworn statement. Write out something simple, maybe a 1 or 2 page report discussing the types of symptoms you're experiencing. Maybe it's crepitus, grinding, limitation of motion, pain, discomfort, even specifics. Maybe it's hard to get in and out of a vehicle. Maybe it's hard to be in certain postures. But the more the better. The more specific the better, and the more the better. And then on top of that, lastly, go give them a symptom report, a symptom log report. If you go to our website, which is found in the description, you'll find there are symptom reports there that are freely available on our website. And the goal there is just to give a contemporaneous diary and log of the symptoms that you're experiencing. Give them something to work with. And sometimes these things take years to resolve. The claims, that is, the appeals and claims. Well, you don't want these claims to be open for 4 to 5 years and then to start the logs. So during the totality of the life of these claims and appeals, go ahead and keep doing those logs and journals and send them to the VA and the Department of Veteran Affairs. It'll help your case. But let's go on from there. Let's talk about, the goal of this topic here is really to cover the broad picture, the typical thigh conditions: sprains, strains with a P and a T, bursitis, arthritis, and trochanteric pain syndrome. Those are the common ones that most people experience. And I'm not trying to address the very specific nuanced conditions because this would take too long, this video. So with that in mind, let's dig in. One of the things we need to figure out before we actually look at the examination report is how can we get this condition service connected? There's multiple theories of service connection. One is direct, one is secondary, and then there's this thing called a chronic condition under 38 CFR 3.309. So a direct service connection is going to be you had something happen on active duty and you're trying to link a current diagnosis to that event on active duty. This is the most common way. You just need the examiner to agree that whatever you're experiencing today is diagnosable and attributable to that active duty in-service event. The other option would be secondary. Perhaps you have a back condition. Let's just call it back condition. And the back is located near the hip, and maybe you're altering your gait with the back problem. And let's say that back problem is service connected. You claim the hip secondary to the back because your gait's altered and you're putting undue stress on that new hip now, or on that one of your hips. You might be able to claim a strain or a sprain because of that undue stress, because of the altered gait. That would be a secondary theory of service connection. Those are pretty common. And then the last way, which people aren't too familiar with, is this 38 CFR 3.309 chronic condition theory of service connection. And what that's going to be is where a veteran has one of the expressly listed conditions found within that regulation on active duty, then they must be service connected. Alternatively, if it happens within 1 year after active duty, and this is critical, if it happens after active duty, which isn't the norm, but if your condition begins to a compensable degree after active duty within 1 year, they must award service connection for that condition. Well, what conditions are on that list? Arthritis, specifically within the context of the thigh and hip, arthritis. So if you had symptoms, and let's say even at 12 months you reported pain, but they didn't do the diagnosis and the MRI or X-ray of the thigh until 15 months, that would still qualify because your symptoms began. That they waited 3 months to do the X-ray shouldn't be held against you. So those are the theories of service connection: direct, secondary, and then you have your chronic condition under 38 CFR 3.309. So with that in mind, that's the first step. Don't forget, you have to get service connection. We don't move on to the degree of your impairment until you get service connection. That's the most important step, because oftentimes the VA isn't even disagreeing with you that you have a severe condition. They just say it's not attributable to the military. So with those facts in mind, let's move on to the actual examination report, the C&P examination report that the examiner is going to do. So the common conditions that we're going to look at, we're looking at 38 CFR 4.71A, and this is known as the rating schedule. The schedule of ratings. And this is what adjudicators go to determine what you're going to be eligible for if you're awarded service connection. Again, step 2 is determining the degree of your impairment. So here, when discussing the thigh and the hip, we're going to look at diagnostic codes 5251, 5252, and 5253. Now you'll notice they all deal with limitation of motion. So that's what we're going to look at. So you'll notice with the thigh, you have limitation of extension, limitation of flexion, limitation of abduction, and limitation of adduction. And those videos showing those different nuanced types of ranges of motion, you'll see them in the description. So go ahead and check those out on your own so you're familiarized with the things they might have you do while in the examination. So we looked at those 3 diagnostic codes. Again, those are going to be the common diagnostic codes. Let's talk about the big picture. You show up on the day of the exam. What do you really need to get across to this examiner? Limitation in range of motion, pain, discomfort, and functional loss. So the functional loss can actually be attributable to pain, which causes additional limitation in range of motion. But if you look at 38 CFR 4.59, the VA seeks to award compensation for painful motion at the minimal compensable level. So even if you don't have a lot of limitation, if you don't have limitation in range of motion, just a nominal amount, but you do have pain, that alone is sufficient to be awarded a compensable 10% evaluation for the hip. 38 CFR 4.71 also demonstrates the hip abduction. It's a picture within the regulation. They don't give you a picture of adduction, so again, you can look at the videos for that. So let's actually take a look at the examination report, the actual examination report. The primary area we're going to focus on is section 3. And this is a long DBQ. Limitation of motion and pain is really what you're going to get a compensable evaluation on. It really is about that simple. There's exceptions. If you had a hip replacement, you're going to want to bring that up. If you've had major surgeries, you're going to want to bring those up. But really, when you're talking joints, especially the hip and thigh, you're looking at limitation of motion and pain. So with that in mind, let's look at section 3. And section 3, incidentally, is range of motion and functional limitation. The examiner is going to take a tool known as a goniometer, if they do their job properly, and they're going to measure how far you can bend your hip with flexion and extension, or adduction and abduction. They're going to measure the range of motion, and they're going to annotate it accordingly. Now you'll find even with the hip replacement, again, pain and limitation of motion are going to be critical in what you communicate to the examiner. So despite this being 11 pages in length, the DBQ report, those are the things you really want to focus on. Some unique considerations when dealing with the hip and thigh is you can receive multiple evaluations for the hip and thigh. So unlike, say, a back, you're only going to get one evaluation for the back, for the joint itself. And the neck, you're only going to get one evaluation. And for the ankle, you're only going to get one evaluation, and other joints that are similarly treated. With the hip, you can get up to 3 evaluations. And so you want to make sure you're communicating if you're having limitation of motion of the flexion and extension, and pain, and arthritis. So if you can communicate that effectively and the examiner agrees, it's possible you could get up to 3 evaluations, compensable evaluations, without breaking and violating what's known as pyramiding laws. So you get more bang for your buck with the thighs, which probably means you have a pretty severe disability. With that in mind, make sure that you do communicate arthritis. Again, I communicated this at the outset, but if you have a diagnosis of arthritis, it will support your claim and give you an increased evaluation or a heightened chance of such. So let's close this out. What do we really need to focus on? Again, as I mentioned in the beginning, document. Print that stuff out. If you've got x-rays, if you've got treatment reports, if you have therapy, if you have braces, or whatever it is for your thigh and hip, print it up and bring it in. Bring your sworn statements in and bring your symptom logs in. Hand it to the examiner. If they don't take it, you can send the VA report with a copy of those saying, I tried to give this to the examiner. Because what it does is it puts the examiner a little bit in a corner where they have to acknowledge the favorable evidence. And so do yourself a favor and bring that with you. Keep it simple, stupid. Limitation of motion and pain and functional impairment. If you have any type of employment incapacity, or if your employment's limited because of your thigh, make sure you communicate that. That's yet another thing that can be helpful in your claim. But short of these things, that's about all you really need to know going into your thigh exam for these generalized conditions. Thank you for joining us for the thigh and hip examination discussion. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, subscribe to our channel, check the description box out, and also look at our website. You might find some more helpful resources there. Have a great day.